wealth is simply printed out of thin air. But true geopolitical power must be manufactured. For a quarter century, a silent world war has raged in the shadows. No bombs were dropped. No artillery was fired. Only container ships crossing oceans. And central bank ledgers quietly shifting trillions. Welcome to Data Race 360. This is the ultimate autopsy of global dominance. Look at the starting line in the year 2000. The old world order stands firm and arrogant. Japan sits on the absolute throne of global trade surplus, holding $67 billion. Its high-tech exports and automotive empire form an unbreachable fortress. Behind them, the Russian Federation fortifies its position with $52 billion. Weaponizing its vast oil and gas pipelines as a geopolitical shield against the West. But look at the dark bottom of the economic map. The industrial heart of the West is already bleeding. The United States is drowning in a massive deficit abyss of $381 billion. Washington has activated its ultimate weapon. The global fiat printing press. The American empire is buying real, tangible goods from the world. And paying for it with printed greenbacks. It feels like endless prosperity. But it is a trap. In 2001, the historic trigger is pulled. The Western elites welcome China into the World Trade Organization. They arrogantly believed they could domesticate the rising dragon. They thought they would export democracy. Instead, it became the greatest economic Trojan horse in human history. The initial trade gap between the United States and China stands at $409 billion. Remember this baseline. Because the industrial tsunami is about to be unleashed. Between 2002 and 2005, the tectonic plates of the world shift violently. Germany strikes back. Capturing the #1 throne with its precision engineering and heavy machine tools. Japan is forced to retreat. But the real, terrifying shockwave comes from the east. China shatters the old guard. Infiltrating the top 3 with over $124 billion in surplus. An infinite army of cheap labor. And colossal, city-sized factories have completely rewritten the laws of economics. Meanwhile, the American deficit expands like a collapsing star. Crossing $739 billion. The superpower is officially addicted to foreign production. The geopolitical gap crosses $864 billion. The year 2006 marks the great, undisputed coronation. China claims the absolute #1 spot on Earth. Dethroning Germany with $208 billion. The global factory is fully operational. The trade imbalance between the two titans touches a terrifying $995 billion. Almost $1 trillion in sheer, unadulterated imbalance. And then, the ultimate stress test arrives. The great financial crisis of 2008 strikes the very heart of the Western world. The toxic subprime mortgage matrix in the United States completely collapses. The Wall Street illusion shatters. Western economies are bleeding out, paralyzed by debt. Yet, the new Eastern Empire proves its absolute, terrifying immunity. While the US deficit remains trapped in a black hole at -$740 billion, China prints a record-breaking $348 billion surplus. They did not buy into the toxic paper derivatives. They built roads, ports, and high-speed rail. The global gap hits a historical peak of $1.08 trillion. Money is no longer just a medium of exchange. It has been weaponized. As the first decade closes in 2011, Germany and China are locked in a brutal, neck-and-neck war for global export dominance. The battle lines have been drawn in concrete. The illusion of a unipolar world is dead. The real war for the future is about to begin. No empire grows to heaven forever. As we enter the second decade, the fragile illusion of balance is completely shattered. By 2015, the dragon breaks all known scales of economics. China explodes past its rivals, printing a terrifying $358 billion surplus. An unmatched, overwhelming industrial output. Germany, the pride of Europe, is left far behind. The American deficit drops into a deeper, darker abyss. But inside the corridors of Washington, the political pressure finally reaches its boiling point. In 2017, the era of open trade war arrives with absolute fury. Tariffs are weaponized by the United States. The sacred rules of free trade are ripped apart and thrown into the fire. And in 2018, the chart shows a sudden, violent strategic retreat. China's reported global surplus drops catastrophically to $91 billion under the crushing weight of aggressive tariffs. Politicians in the West celebrate. They think they are winning. But do not be blinded by the surface numbers. The fundamental supply chains did not return to the West. They merely relocated to neighboring countries in Southeast Asia and Latin America to bypass the tariff walls. A shadow supply chain was born. And the absolute proof of this failure? The American deficit never recovered. It continued bleeding heavily at minus $593 billion. The dragon was not defeated. It was simply moving its pieces in the dark. Then, the entire world abruptly stops. The year 2020 delivers the ultimate global pandemic shockwave. Supply chains break across all borders. Airplanes are grounded. Ships are anchored. But the world needs medical goods, antibiotics, and digital technology more than ever. The West realizes, in pure horror, that it can no longer manufacture its own survival. The ultimate manufacturing empire unleashes its full power. China explodes back to the absolute top with $355 billion. While Washington reacts by activating its money-printing presses on an unprecedented, historic scale. Trillions of fiat dollars are injected into the system to keep the population quiet. The result is a devastating transfer of wealth. The money printed in the West flows straight across the ocean into the pockets of Eastern producers. By 2022, the American deficit reaches its darkest point in human history. Minus $958 billion. Nearly $1 trillion drained from a single nation in just 12 months. The geopolitical trade gap touches an astronomical $1.53 trillion. But look closely at the top three in these chaotic final years. Hidden fortresses have emerged from the shadows. Ireland and Singapore capture the elite spots, holding hundreds of billions in surplus. Not because they suddenly built massive factories or discovered oil. But because they became the ultimate tax havens for multinational assets. This is the new, invisible face of trade warfare. The ghost trade of intellectual property, software licensing, and corporate alchemy. Where wealth is hidden in legal loopholes. Finally, look at the brutal endgame in 2024. The final scoreboard is absolute and unforgiving. China stands as the undisputed economic colossus of the planet, with $533 billion in surplus. The United States closes this chronicle at an ultimate, devastating deficit of $909 billion. The final gap between the two immortal rivals stands at a staggering $1.44 trillion. 24 years of data warfare. One nation consumed the planet, while another nation manufactured it. The financial balance of power has been permanently rewritten. But a cold, sharp geopolitical twist is emerging right now. Paper wealth, fiat currencies, and digital numbers are losing their magic. We are entering the dark era of dedollarization. An era of asset freezes, sanctions, and resource nationalism. When digital currencies can be locked with a single click, tangible goods become the only real power. What is the ultimate hidden asset that the superpowers are secretly accumulating for the next conflict? Is it gold reserves? Is it rare earth elements? Or is it the total, absolute monopoly of artificial intelligence? The rules of survival have permanently changed. Do not be left behind. Subscribe to Data Race 360. Turn on notifications immediately. Because the next race for survival has already begun.